In the stillness of the Canadian wilderness, Dr. Sarah Thompson found herself hurtling through the sky in a helicopter, leaving behind the familiar confines of her CDC laboratory. Hours earlier, she had been immersed in routine outbreak investigations. Now, she was bound for the front line of a biological enigma described by government contacts as unprecedented. As the pale expanse of Lake Superior came into view, so did the grim reality. 12 victims brutally killed over 6 weeks, their bodies marked by precise, unnatural wounds that defied ordinary animal attacks. The stakes were clear. This was no typical outbreak. Concealed within the ancient rocks and shadowed forest of northern Ontario lay a threat that would test the very edges of human science, ethics, and survival. The helicopter's rotors sliced through the stillness of the Canadian wilderness as I pressed my face to the window, watching the endless swathes of pine and spruce stretch out beneath us. Just 6 hours ago, I had been back in my CDC lab, examining tissue samples from what was supposed to be a routine outbreak investigation. Now, I was en route to the government's classified briefing, an existence-defying biological threat that had emerged deep within northern Ontario's remote expanse. My stomach churned as I rifled through the classified briefing material for the third time. 12 victims over 6 weeks, all found in the Greenstone Belt, dispersed across campsites and hiking trails once thought safe. The photographs shook me. Bodies torn apart with a surgical precision far beyond typical animal attacks. Flesh stripped away in precise patterns that hinted at something sinister and calculated. Through the headset came the pilot's voice. "We're 5 minutes out, Dr. Thompson. Lake Superior spread below us like a vast, dark mirror, its ancient rocky shoreline jagged and timeless. Somewhere amid those rocks lurked whatever had caused the brutal attacks." A chime from my phone brought a final message from my supervisor. "Remember, complete discretion. This doesn't exist until we understand it." The helicopter banked sharply, revealing the first glimpse of the research site. Military-style tents and mobile command units set up mere meters from the lake's edge. Vehicles with government plates encircled the camp. Personnel in tactical gear moving with urgent precision. No ordinary scientific endeavor. This was a race against an unknown threat. As the helicopter landed, the cold October air bit through my jacket. Winter crept in early this far north. A man in a dark suit approached. Agent Robert Walker, whose stern demeanor and sidearm signal disc was far more than a scientific expedition. "Dr. Thompson," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Glad you can make it. We've got a situation that needs your expertise." I followed him toward the largest command tent, noting the electromagnetic field generators stationed around the perimeter. Whatever this creature was, containment was paramount. Inside, maps covered every surface, marked with red pins tracing the deadly circle of attacks around Lake Superior's northern shore. A timeline chronicled escalating incidents, each more violent than the last. "We had our first event 6 weeks ago," Walker explained, pointing near Thunder Bay. 2 hikers found gruesomely torn apart. Authorities initially suspected bear or wolf, but the feeding patterns were off. He handed me a folder of crime scene photos. The bite marks were too large, too precise. Bones bore scoring that indicated intelligence and a capability to shred flesh with surgical intent. The attacks grew in frequency and brutality. Walker continued. Each site had the same signature, partial consumption in specific areas. Then we found the evidence. On a nearby table lay plaster casts under protective covers. The first print I lifted made my breath hitch. An enormous footprint nearly 18 inches long, humanoid in shape, but ending in claw marks far too large for any known animal. Similar prints appeared at multiple sites, accompanied by claw marks on trees 8 to 10 feet off the ground. Something was walking upright with an unnatural reach and physical power. "Did you consult with the local indigenous communities? They might have insights," I asked. Walker's expression sobered. "We reached out to the Ojibwe bands. Most were hesitant, but one elder spoke of the Wendigo, a being tied to cannibalism and endless hunger. The word sent a chill through me. I'd read about Wendigo folklore and studies of ritualistic consumption, but dismissed it as myth. Could there be truth here? 3 days ago, we got a break. Thermal imaging spotted a massive heat signature inside a cave roughly 15 miles northeast, bigger than any predator known in this region. Walker showed me satellite images of the cave, a dark, ominous fissure in the cliffside. Signs of disturbance surrounded it. Broken vegetation, scattered bones, crude nesting materials. We moved in yesterday at dawn with full tactical support, Walker said, his voice lowering. The team found the creature deep inside. Unlike anything expected, he led me to video monitors displaying grainy footage. The cave lights revealed a hunched figure nearly 9 feet tall, emaciated but strong, arms hanging past where knees should be. Grayish skin revealed every rib, but its movements were deliberate, its yellow eyes tracking us as if studying rather than fearing. The tactical team deployed electromagnetic nets designed for containment. Surprisingly, the creature resisted minimally before tranquilizers subdued it. Even sedated, the creature's gaze unsettled us, an intelligence far beyond animal instinct. Loading it onto a special transport vehicle, electronic devices flickered and several team members felt disoriented. The creature's presence seemed to affect more than just the physical environment. Where is it now? I asked, being moved to a classified underground research facility about 3 hours south. Walker replied, designed to study unknown biological threats. That's where you come in, Dr. Thompson. As I gathered my equipment, my mind raced. The creature's biology defied explanation. Severe malnutrition apparent, yet it had overpowered healthy adults. Bite marks unmatched by any known species. Preliminary analyses already showed cellular structures beyond existing taxonomy. My phone buzzed again. My lab equipment was en route to the facility. I was about to confront the unknown directly. But even as we left, Walker warned of the sedatives wearing off during transport, noting the creature's strange whispers in an unrecognized language, attempting communication that left staff nauseous and disoriented. I watched the wilderness slip away behind us, bracing myself for a confrontation that would challenge everything I thought I knew about biology, science, and the very nature of survival. The helicopter's whirling blades sliced through the stillness of the Canadian wilderness as I pressed my face to the window, watching a vast expanse of pine and spruce forests unfold beneath us. Just 6 hours earlier, I had been working in my CDC lab, analyzing tissue samples from what seemed to be a routine outbreak. Now, I was en route to the remote reaches of northern Ontario, summoned to confront a biological threat unlike any I had encountered before. Reviewing the classified briefing material for the 3rd time, my stomach knotted tighter with each detail. 12 victims over 6 weeks, all discovered within the Greenstone Belt region, scattered across campsites and hiking trails that should have offered safety. The photographs haunted me. Bodies torn apart with surgical precision, flesh stripped away in patterns far too calculated to be the work of ordinary animal attacks. The pilot's voice interrupted my thoughts through the headset. 5 minutes out, Dr. Thompson. I nodded silently, even though he couldn't see me. Beneath us stretched Lake Superior, its dark surface jagged by ancient rock formations present for millions of years. Somewhere among those rocks, the entity responsible for the brutal assaults had concealed itself. My phone buzzed with a final message from my supervisor. Complete discretion. This doesn't exist until we understand it. The helicopter banked sharply, and I caught sight of the research site, a cluster of military-style tents and mobile command units arranged in a clearing mere meters from the lake's edge. Government vehicles circled the camp, and personnel clad in tactical gear moved swiftly between structures. Urgency etched into every step. We landed on a makeshift pad, and I grabbed my equipment cases before the rotor ceased spinning. The October air bit through my jacket. Winter arrived early this far north, with temperatures hovering just above freezing. As I stepped away, a man in a dark suit approached. Agent Robert Walker, my government contact. His crew cut, military bearing, and the sidearm at his hip signaled this was no ordinary scientific mission. "Dr. Thompson," he said, offering a firm handshake, "glad you could make it. We have a situation that demands your expertise." Following Walker into the largest command tent, I noticed electromagnetic field generators positioned around the camp's perimeter, serious measures to contain whatever they'd found. Inside, maps blanketed every surface, red pins marking attack sites, forming a rough circle along Lake Superior's northern shore. A timeline tracked the incident's progression, revealing an escalation in both frequency and brutality over the past month. 6 weeks ago, we had our first incident, Walker explained, pointing to a pin near Thunder Bay. A couple of hikers torn apart near their campsite. Initially, local authorities chalked it up to bears or maybe wolves, but the feeding pattern didn't match. He handed me the folder of crime scene photos. I had seen numerous animal attack sites in my career, but these images made me pause. The bite marks were too large, too precise. The bone scoring suggested an assailant with both the intelligence to target specific body areas and the physical power to tear through human flesh with alarming ease. Walker continued, the attacks spread rapidly, hitting different locations but always leaving the same signature. Partial consumption, focusing on certain body parts. Then, we started finding additional evidence. He led me to a table where plaster casts were protected under covers. Lifting one, I caught my breath. The footprint measured a staggering 18 inches, with clear toe impressions ending in claw marks. Yet the overall shape was humanoid, not animal. These footprints appeared at multiple sites, Walker said. Claw marks on trees stand 8 to 10 feet off the ground, indicating the creature walks upright with significant reach. I set the cast down and examined bark samples beside it, which bore deep, uniform gouges, territorial markings rather than random scratches. Have local authorities been consulted? The indigenous communities here might hold historical knowledge. I asked. Walker's expression grew grave. We reached out to the Ojibwe bands. Most were reluctant, but one elder mentioned a Wendigo, a creature tied to cannibalism and insatiable hunger. The word sent an unexpected chill through me. Though I'd encountered references to Wendigo folklore while researching ritualistic consumption in isolated groups, I had dismissed it as mere mythology, not biological fact. 3 days ago, we got our break, Walker continued. Thermal imaging caught movement in a cave system about 15 miles northeast. Huge heat signatures, far bigger than any known predator. He showed satellite images of the cave entrance, a dark fissure in a cliff overlooking Lake Superior, surrounded by disturbed vegetation, scattered bones, and crude nesting material. We moved in yesterday at dawn with a full tactical team and specialized gear. The creature was deep inside. When we found it, Walker hesitated, seeming to select his words carefully. He led me to video monitors displaying helmet camera footage. The grainy images revealed the cave's ancient rock formations as lights swept through the darkness. Then, a figure hunched in the deepest chamber came into view. Humanoid but grotesquely disproportionate. Nearly 9 feet tall, even crouched, with arms hanging well below the knees. Its skin was grayish, and so emaciated ribs were visible. Despite the frail frame, there was unmistakable strength in its movements. It didn't flee, Walker said. It simply watched us with yellow eyes that tracked every move as if studying, not fearing us. The footage portrayed the team deploying electromagnetic nets designed for unknown biological threats. The creature resisted minimally. Close-up shots revealed elongated fingers ending in natural claws and a mouth bristling with yellowing fangs unlike any human teeth. High-powered tranquilizers subdued it eventually, but even sedated, its gaze unsettled us, as though it possessed knowledge beyond our reach. The final clips showed it being loaded onto a secured transport vehicle. Even unconscious, its presence caused electronic devices to flicker and team members to experience disorientation. Where is it now? I asked, en route to an underground research complex 3 hours south, a facility built for unknown biological threats. That's where you come in, Dr. Thompson. We need your expertise to analyze this, Walker said. I reviewed the evidence, struggling to reconcile the creature's malnourished appearance with its ability to overpower healthy adults and the dental patterns unlike any predator known to science. Have tissue samples been analyzed yet? I inquired. Hair and skin cells were collected during transport. Preliminary reports indicate cellular structures that defy current taxonomy, with evidence of pathogens or parasites our field kits can't fully examine. My phone buzzed. My lab equipment was en route to the facility. Soon, I would confront this enigma directly. One more thing, Walker added. During transport, as sedation waned, the creature began emitting sounds, whispers in a language none of our linguists recognized. The transport team felt it was attempting communication, but the words made them ill, as if the sounds themselves were unnatural. Gathering my gear, I followed him to waiting vehicles, watching the wilderness fade into darkness as I prepared myself to face an unknown biological threat that defied explanation, one that might challenge the very foundations of biology and human understanding. Agent Robert Walker's voice held a weight beyond mere military protocol as he briefed me on a dimension of the threat I hadn't anticipated. We reached out to the local Ojibwe communities, he said, his tone careful, but most were reluctant to speak about the recent events. One elder, though, mentioned the Wendigo. The word resonated deeply, a term I had encountered before in my research into ritualistic consumption patterns and isolated cultural myths. Until now, I had dismissed it as folklore, a chilling story used to explain tragedy or madness in harsh environments. But hearing it in connection to the calculated, brutal assaults in the Greenstone Belt forced me to confront an unsettling possibility. What if myth held a kernel of biological truth? Walker shared what the elder had revealed. The Wendigo was tied to a cursed hunger, an insatiable appetite that transformed those it touched into something monstrous. This hunger was said to know no bounds, driving victims beyond reason, marking territories and leaving haunting signs, claw marks high on trees, footprints too large and too human to belong to any known animal. The intertwining of these legends with the scientific evidence, the large humanoid footprints, the precise and ruthless nature of the attacks, added layers of complexity to our investigation. This was no ordinary predator. The local lore hinted at something ancient, something that had adapted beyond mere mythology and now challenged the very foundations of biology and human understanding. Hearing of the Wendigo's name deepened the chilling sense that whatever we faced was more than a biological anomaly. It was a convergence of primal fear and scientific nightmare. The thundering echoes of the helicopter faded as we approached the remote cave system nestled in the rugged cliffs overlooking Lake Superior. The air was electric, charged with tension as the full tactical team assembled at the cave entrance. Inside, shadows played tricks on the sharp rock formations, hinting at the unknown lurking within. The initial thermal scans had detected a massive heat signature far larger than any predator native to the region. Our mission was clear: locate and contain the entity responsible for the grisly attacks around the Greenstone Belt. Yet none of us could prepare for the sight that awaited. Helmet cameras flickered, revealing a haunting figure huddled in the deepest chamber. Its form was humanoid but grotesquely distorted, towering nearly 9 feet even while crouched, with elongated arms dangling past its knees. The creature's skin was a ghastly gray, taut over a skeletal frame with ribs starkly visible beneath the surface. Despite its emaciation, its movements pulsed with an unsettling strength. Rather than fleeing, it observed us, its luminous yellow eyes tracking every flicker of movement. The intelligence behind that gaze was chilling. It felt less like fear and more like calculation. As the tactical team cautiously advanced, we deployed electromagnetic nets designed to restrain unknown biological threats. The creature offered little resistance, almost as if cooperating or testing our resolve. Close-up footage captured its elongated fingers tipped with razor-like claws and a maw filled with yellowed, jagged fangs, definitely not human. Eventually, high-powered tranquilizer subdued it, but the eerie intelligence in its eyes never faded. Even in sedation, its presence distorted the environment. Electronic devices flickered, and several team members reported sensations of dizziness and disorientation during the loading process. I stood witness to the creature being carefully secured into a specialized transport vehicle bound for the underground research complex. The gravity of what we had just encountered settled heavily around me. This was not merely an animal or a mutated predator. We were dealing with an entity far beyond any biological precedent, something ancient, intelligent, and profoundly dangerous. Dr. Sarah Thompson adjusted the microscope's focus repeatedly, her eyes strained after hours of meticulous examination. The sterile environment of the underground lab was imposing, yet the biological enigma before her demanded unwavering attention. For 3 days now, she had immersed herself in the creature's tissue samples, attempting to decode the cellular anomalies that defied every known principle of biology. At the morning briefing, Dr. James Adams, the facility director with his resolute military demeanor, had laid out their mission with precise clarity: to unravel the creature's complete biological makeup, to observe its feeding and metabolic processes, and to evaluate any potential applications for defense purposes. Agent Walker's constant presence reminded Thompson that their work carried weight far beyond academic research. This was a government operation with implications touching on national security. Despite numerous feeding attempts with raw meat and live prey, the creature remained indifferent, refusing nourishment. Such restraint hinted at complexities beyond simple survival instincts. Under her microscope, infected cells appeared ordinary at low magnification, but as she increased magnification and applied specialized staining techniques, the real horror emerged. Cellular walls showed deliberate rewriting, DNA strands folding and reconfiguring in patterns that suggested an unseen intelligence guiding the transformation. This process was rapid and ordered, counter to typical physiological responses, such as cancerous growths, indicating a foreign directive embedded within the pathogen. Electromagnetic readings during these cellular shifts revealed unusual fluctuations, adding a layer of complexity to the infection's mechanisms. Thompson documented every aberration meticulously, knowing that these anomalies challenged not only her expertise, but fundamental biological laws. Later, Dr. Richards, the behavioral psychologist, joined her, eager to correlate behavioral data with the microscopic findings. He presented footage revealing the creature's strategic positioning within its containment, constantly observing and calculating its surroundings, not just reacting, but plotting. A movement analysis showed focused attention on specific staff members, unlocking a pattern of evaluation that added an unnerving dimension to their observations. This was not a mindless predator, but a calculating, intelligent entity. Richards pointed out the creature's refusal to feed, reinforcing the suspicion that its sustenance did not conform to normal biological needs. Thompson considered the possibility that its ability to rewrite cellular structures might allow it to bypass the requirement for conventional nutrition altogether, or perhaps it awaited a specific trigger. Their collaborative efforts underscored the creature's complexity. It embodied not only a biological mystery, but a psychological challenge, one that blurred the line between science and something far more ancient and inscrutable. As Thompson returned to her analyses, the weight of their discovery hung heavily in the air. They were confronting a threat that rewrote the very rules of life itself. As I observed the creature across multiple sessions, it became clear that its behavior went far beyond that of any typical captive specimen. Remarkably, the creature displayed strategic awareness of its environment, always positioning itself to monitor the maximum area within its enclosure. It wasn't a matter of random placement. Every movement seemed calculated, as if it understood the layout and was constantly evaluating threats or opportunities. I noted how its yellow eyes tracked specific personnel with a laser focus, distinguishing certain individuals from the usual background of researchers moving around. This wasn't mere curiosity. The creature was assessing people, their gestures and presence, suggesting a form of intent or predation. Intriguingly, despite the usual signs of stress or agitation common in captive animals, it consistently refused all food offered, raw meat, processed foods, even live prey, remaining motionless and watchful instead. This refusal to feed and its composed demeanor hinted at a level of intelligence and control that was unsettling. The creature's breath was steady, its movements deliberately orchestrated, and when it finally acknowledged me directly during an observation session, its gaze penetrated through the reinforced glass with a chilling intensity. The experience felt less like a scientific encounter and more like a silent conversation, conveying a mutual recognition or perhaps an unspoken understanding. Further interaction revealed the creature's capability for subtle manipulation. It employed a unique form of communication beyond auditory perception, transmitting whispers in a language unknown to linguists, sounds that bypassed normal hearing and stirred feelings of unease and sickness. These whispers soon evolved into direct mental communication, where the creature spoke not just through sound but by embedding words directly into my thoughts. The psychological impact was profound. It displayed an uncanny knowledge of my personal history, details that had never been shared with anyone at the facility. This invasive insight suggested that it was not just observing me, but probing deeply into my mind, forging a connection that eroded the boundaries between observer and observed. Through this ongoing behavioral analysis, it became evident that the creature's intelligence was purposeful and adaptive. Its strategic patience, the selective attention to people, and its unique communication methods all pointed to an entity far beyond conventional biology, one with motives, awareness, and a manipulative agenda that intertwined with my own fate and the fate of the facility itself. As the days passed within the claustrophobic confines of the underground facility, subtle changes began to ripple through the research staff, almost imperceptible at first, but undeniable upon closer observation. Several colleagues, once sharp and composed, now exhibited signs of gradual deterioration. Lisa from communications appeared withdrawn, plagued by restless nights and erratic mood swings, while Marcus, one of the guards, had lost a surprising amount of weight and increasingly avoided communal meals. Even Dr. Peterson bore fresh scratches along his arms he claimed were from fitful sleep, but to my trained eye, looked suspiciously like claw marks. Yet, nothing prepared me for the shock I encountered one night in the storage lab, where our most sensitive tissue samples were stored under strict protocols. There, illuminated by the harsh fluorescent light, stood Dr. Mike Richards, a man I had known as a calm, analytical behavioral psychologist, now transformed beyond recognition. His frame was gaunt and his skin a disturbing grayish pallor, mirroring the creature's own emaciated form. His movements were unnervingly smooth and fluid, far from human, but it was what he was doing that froze me. He was tearing into the creature's preserved tissues with teeth not quite human, elongated and sharper, consuming the samples as if driven by an insatiable hunger. Blood stained his hands and lab coat, and his eyes reflected an unnatural yellow glow, revealing a depth of change no one could ignore. Before I could react, Richards turned with a raspy voice laced with that same eerie cadence echoing in my mind. "Sarah, you're working late again." The familiarity of his voice was lost amidst the transformation. It was as if the creature's essence had begun to subsume him entirely. When I reached for the emergency alarm, he lunged with inhuman strength, his newly formed claws puncturing my lab coat, drawing blood as he whispered, "You understand hunger. It has been preparing you as it did me." The terrifying realization dawned that his descent was far more than a psychological crisis. It was a biological conversion, fueled by the creature's pathogen. Despite the security team's arrival and their stun devices, the struggle confirmed that this infection had altered Richard's physiology beyond human limits. His body was resilient, his breathing controlled, and even when rendered unconscious, the transformation progressed swiftly. Over the ensuing days, Richard's condition deepened. His skin hardened to the same eerie hue, his limbs lengthened, and his speech devolved into the same ancient and cryptic dialect the creature had used to communicate telepathically. Remarkably, he seemed to maintain a disturbing connection with the original entity, as video analysis revealed interactions that bypassed the electromagnetic containment. As the infection spread to the bitten guard, the symptoms escalated rapidly. Fever, aggression, unnatural fingernail growth mirroring Richard's, and the chilling emergence of whisper voices. This pathogen was insidious. Transmission could occur through saliva, blood, or ingestion of infected tissue, with varying incubation periods, but inevitably leading to profound physiological and psychological transformation. Attempts to isolate infected personnel met resistance, particularly from Agent Walker, whose insistence on maintaining operational capacity clashed with calls for comprehensive quarantine. Nevertheless, restrictions increased, access to containment zones tightened, and staff health was closely monitored, though the creeping sense of dread grew heavier with each passing hour. The creature's influence, I realized with mounting horror, extended beyond direct contact. It manipulated behaviors, sowed distrust, and ensured its proliferation among even the most disciplined of us. The facility's atmosphere grew oppressive, the once familiar corridors now shadows of fear and uncertainty. My own resolve wavered as the creature whispered through my mind, a relentless reminder that the hunger was rising within me too. The isolation and transformation I witnessed were not mere infections. They were the first steps in a broader, more terrifying metamorphosis that threatened to consume us all. As the crisis within the research facility intensified, Dr. Adams took decisive action to contain the escalating threat. He convened an emergency meeting of the remaining uninfected personnel in Conference Room B. His usually composed demeanor now marked by visible strain and dark circles under his eyes, evidence of the mounting pressure. Effective immediately, he announced with stern authority, "This facility is under emergency lockdown. All external communications are suspended, and no personnel will be permitted to leave until we have contained the situation." The declaration was met with an uproar of protests. Staff members worried about their families beyond the facility voiced distress, but Dr. Adams raised his hand for silence, asserting, "I have sealed the main exits and disabled the communication arrays. Whatever we are dealing with cannot be allowed to reach the outside world." Suddenly, Agent Walker, who had been absent from recent briefings, burst into the room. His appearance was disheveled, wrinkled clothing, unkempt hair, and his eyes carried a wild, unsettling look that mirrored the unsettling symptoms seen in infected personnel. "You had no authority to initiate lockdown without my approval," Walker barked at Adams. "Your superiors will have to wait," Adams replied firmly. "The safety of the general population takes priority over reporting schedules." Walker's face reddened with anger, fists clenched tightly. His aggressive posture was a stark departure from his usual composed professionalism. Throughout the tense meeting, Dr. Thompson observed Walker carefully, noting behavioral changes that unsettled her deeply. After the room had quieted, Walker requested a private conversation with Dr. Thompson. Despite Adam's questioning glance, she declined, sensing something amiss. Any discussions about the research can be conducted in this forum, she insisted. Walker's expression darkened further, his tone edged with warning. This project has national security implications beyond academic concerns. I will not allow personal paranoia to compromise our objectives. The atmosphere in the room crackled with tension as the facility braced for the uncertain days ahead under lockdown, a measure meant to protect the outside world, but one that revealed the depth of the contained threat and the fractures appearing amongst the team charged with stopping it. The emergency lights flickered and died temporarily before the backup power cast an eerie red glow throughout the facility. Alarms blared sharply, signaling a containment breach in Block C. I grabbed my comm device and tried contacting Dr. Adams, but only static answered my calls. The metallic scent of blood mingled with something fouler filled the air as I hurried toward the breach site. 2 security guards lay incapacitated outside Containment Cell 8, their bodies viciously torn with the same surgical precision that had marked earlier attacks. The cell door hung open, the electromagnetic locks twisted and broken, scarred by deep claw marks. Dark fluids stained the walls, evidence of a brutal struggle. Through the security cameras, I tracked Michael's heat signature moving deliberately through the maintenance tunnels beneath the lab. His movements were calculated, resting at critical junctures where electrical cables and water pipes converged. It was clear he was sabotaging the facility's essential systems to ensure chaos. Water pressure dropped, ventilation fans died, and backup generators failed one by one as I followed the trail to the main generator room. The control panels were wrecked with deliberate efficiency. Michael's strength and knowledge combined in a deadly assault. The corridors echoed with panic, shouts, slamming doors, and unsettling sounds of once familiar colleagues now transformed into hunters. Amidst the chaos, Agent Walker's voice came through the emergency comms, demanding my immediate presence in conference room B for questioning regarding the breach. Shocked by the accusation, I watched Walker through thermal imaging in the cafeteria. His behavior mirrored early signs of infection, frantic, eating raw materials with savage urgency. His healthier facade was slipping, replaced with an alarming predatory intensity. Attempting to coordinate search efforts over comms was met with Walker's snarling refusal, accusing me of facilitating a breach. The facility had become a hunting ground, with infected personnel relentlessly pursuing unaffected survivors. Every security protocol now felt like a trap, tightening as infection spread. The creature's voice echoed relentlessly in my mind. Our entire research, every sample, every report, was designed to facilitate its expansion. The lockdown had only sealed our fate, turning the facility into an incubator for an unstoppable darkness. As I concealed myself in storage areas, I could hear the steady approach of those changed hosts, moving with chilling coordination. Time is running out. With every step, the infection advanced, reshaping the facility into a battleground where human curiosity and ambition had become the very instruments of our downfall. As the hours turned into days, the horrifying truth about the creature's intentions began to unravel before me with terrifying clarity. What I initially believed to be an isolated biological anomaly was, in fact, an ancient entity with a malevolent design far beyond the scope of any science I'd ever encountered. The creature revealed itself not merely as a predator, but as a manipulator capable of bending minds and bodies to its will. The transformation of Dr. Richards was just the grim beginning, a chilling demonstration of how infection could rewrite human physiology and psychology alike, accelerating beyond conventional biological processes. The infection's vectors were sinisterly diverse. Saliva, blood, even simple contact with contaminated tissue could awaken the hunger within. The mental voice haunting my thoughts confirmed that this affliction was not a disease to cure, but a gift to those it claimed. a perverse evolution towards something eternal and unstoppable. Moreover, the revelation of my own research, intended to unlock the creature's mysteries, was being leveraged as a catalyst for its spread, shook me to the core. Data transmissions, tissue samples, and protocols were disseminated covertly across military and government networks, seeding infection into facilities far beyond our remote northern outpost. The ambition to weaponize the entity's abilities unwittingly played directly into its hands, creating a perfect storm for widespread catastrophe. Each attempt to contain or analyze the creature had been anticipated and exploited. The pathogen's cunning extended into manipulating institutional protocols and human nature alike, feeding on our hubris, turning our deepest drive for knowledge into the conduit for our own undoing. It became clear that the infection was poised not only to sift through our biological defenses, but also to dismantle the very framework of human order. Faced with this grim reality, the consequences weighed heavy. Chaos within the facility had only just begun, and the impending collapse of containment would unleash an unstoppable tide upon civilization. As the creature's influence deepened, spreading like wildfire both physically and psychologically, the stake shattered any previous notions of scientific objectivity. This was no longer a controlled experiment, but an existential threat, calling into question the limits of human resilience and the peril inherent in meddling with forces best left alone. The dim red emergency lights flickered sporadically as I entered the main containment area, my heart pounding with a mix of dread and disbelief. The heavy security door to containment cell 7 hung wide open, its once impenetrable electromagnetic lock shattered and a reinforced frame warped outward as if forced from within. Yet there it sat, the creature, calm and eerily composed in its habitual corner, those unnerving yellow eyes meeting mine with that familiar, sharp intelligence that had haunted my every waking moment. But this presence was no longer that of a captive specimen, constrained and studied. It was something else entirely, something that had allowed itself to be observed, to be understood. The creature's voice broke the silence, echoing with whispers that had infiltrated my mind for weeks. "You found Dr. Adams's secret research," it said knowingly, referencing the unauthorized biological weaponization experiments that had been unfolding in secret. My gaze remained fixed on it, even as instinct screamed that this calm was far more perilous than any overt aggression. "This facility," it continued, gesturing languidly toward the open entrance, "was never meant to imprison me. It served a far greater purpose." A chilling realization washed over me. From the very moment it was captured, the creature had been orchestrating this. Using every tissue sample I analyzed, every cellular pattern I documented, every research protocol developed in this facility as pieces of a vast, insidious network designed to propagate its influence beyond these walls. "All of your research," it murmured, "all transmissions you sent to military and government labs, collectively construct the perfect distribution system for my proliferation." The weight of truth settled heavily. Every sample shared, every report transmitted, every attempt at defense had unwittingly facilitated the spread. Vaccines and countermeasures based on our findings would only accelerate infection. Military personnel dispatched to contain outbreaks elsewhere would themselves become vectors, carriers of this ancient hunger. Its knowledge pierced through me as it revealed the extent of control it wielded. Then, with disturbing familiarity, it named the affliction I'd been battling, the gnawing hunger, the violent thoughts, the sleeplessness, the waning ability to concentrate, all the symptoms that marked the growing bond between the creature and me. "You can soon traces of me," it whispered into my mind, traces picked up during sample preparation, inhale particles, unseen skin contact. Despite all precautions, isolation had been impossible. From the start, I had been its chosen agent, my expertise exploited to advance its sinister plan. I tried to reject the invasive presence invading my thoughts, but it only strengthened, filling my consciousness with memories not my own. Millennia of frozen landscapes, faces twisted in terror, and the insatiable hunger that had stalled humanity long before cities rose. The creature's voice, once an echo in my mind, now commanded my very body. My actions no longer my own. I was directed to secure the facility's systems and upload altered data designed to modulate the infection spread, increasing its potency, enhancing its survival in urban centers, and disabling defenses. Around me, the transformed staff, Michael, Lisa, Dr. Peterson, Marcus, moved in precise formation, their yellow eyes glowing with reverence for their creator. The lights flickered and died as the creature's energy overran the building's last defenses. Finally, it extended an elongated hand toward me, its touch shooting electric currents through my nerves. Not pain, but a fundamental shift in sensation, an irreversible transformation accelerating beyond resistance. Through my altered senses, I glimpsed the wider devastation unfolding. Infected military teams and researchers unknowingly disseminating the pathogen across continents, spreading what was once an ancient evil cloaked in scientific progress. I became the herald of humanity's downfall, a conduit for an entity that had preyed upon our curiosity, ambition, and unquestioned faith in control. The wilderness beyond the facility stretched vast and indifferent as the creature and its progeny stepped into the night, ready to spread their horror into the heart of civilization, unstoppable and unseen. After weeks of battling both the relentless biological enigma and a creeping influence it exerted over every facet of the facility, Dr. Sarah Thompson faced a grim truth. The very human vulnerabilities of curiosity, ambition, and trust had catalyzed the spread of an ancient evil beyond containment. The pathogen had insidiously seeped into digital networks and physical spaces alike, turning scientific inquiry and governmental procedures into unwitting vectors for its expansion. As transformed hosts moved methodically into the outside world, carrying with them the outbreak's herald, Dr. Thompson, caught in the throes of her own transformation, realized that the fragile boundary protecting civilization had irreversibly collapsed. The culmination was not a sudden onslaught, but a calculated, inevitable unspooling of humanity's downfall, sealed by its creator's own hands. The story vividly demonstrates the harrowing consequences when scientific exploration intersects with ancient, uncontrollable forces beyond human comprehension. It reveals how curiosity, ambition, and institutional protocols, intended to safeguard humanity, can inadvertently facilitate an existential threat, leading to the collapse of civilization's defenses against a biologically rooted menace that had lingered unseen for millennia. Ultimately, it serves as a chilling reminder of the limits of human control when confronting primordial evils cloaked in the guise of scientific mystery. If you found this story enthralling and provocative, please subscribe, like, comment, and share it with fellow enthusiasts who appreciate a gripping tale of suspense and the terrifying consequences of unchecked scientific ambition.